pretty much been fighting my whole life, played a little bit of football, and this is what I do for a living now. So
for a living, that means he whoops your ass for a living.
Get paid to do it.
Get paid to beat your ass. That's crazy.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Athletic Aesthetic Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny, and I'm here with my co-host, Trey Tipton.
What's up, baby?
And we have a special episode for you today. Trey, who do we got in Studio One?
Man, we got my man Hercules, and for you, those of you who don't know, you're about to find out. My man Dalton Rosta is in the building. What's good, baby?
What's up, guys?
What's up, man? Welcome to the studio.
Yeah,
welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. Man, I'm excited about this conversation. I know you've been really excited about your man coming in here. I actually met you for the first time in person, I think, at the David Allen fashion show. So I want to dig into that a little bit. We have a lot to talk about. I know you got some cool things coming up. But before we get started, let the viewers know like who you are, what you do, and why you're here today.
So my name's Dalton Rosta. I'm a professional MMA fighter. I fight for Bellator. And I'm currently ranked 5th in the middleweight division in Bellator. Just got acquired by PFL too, so you might see me a little bit on PFL as well. I've pretty much been fighting my whole life, played a little bit of football, and this is what I do for a living now. So
for a living, that means he whoops your ass for a living.
Get paid to do it.
Get paid to beat your ass. That's crazy.
That is crazy. So let's start here. I always start when you bring in guests because you know really cool people. So like, how do you guys know each other?
Well, honestly, I don't know Dalton that well, man. We met him the same time, to be honest with you, at the Burn event. You know what I mean?
Oh,
that was the
we
first
did meet at the Burn
experience
event,
I ever had being in your presence. But ultimately, man, the one thing that I noticed is you are diehard Pittsburgh. You feel me?
Yes, sir.
Without question at all, you are diehard Pittsburgh. And that's something that I believe that is like huge, especially when you're from the city. You know what I mean? The city's looking for a lot of different things to melt to and to grab onto. So I'm looking through, and then I became a lover of fighting my damn self. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Not to that level, though. You feel me? I ain't gonna lie to you. I'd rather take him than a lion. You know what I mean? Yeah. The nickname like Hercules, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But ultimately, I was like, let's get to know this guy, man. You in some big time light. You're doing some things that people want to know more about. So let's talk about it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I mean, I think I also just I want to get to know a little bit more about you outside of fighting as well. That's something I enjoy about our shows, like digging into like what got you there. Not even just about like what you're doing right now, what you got coming up, but why you do what you do. So
Facts.
Maybe we could go back. What was it like growing up in Pittsburgh? What were some things you were interested in, and go from there.
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, I don't have like some crazy story. I know that everybody has like a upbringing as to like why they do something or what their why was, or they're always like gravitating towards something. But honestly, there was no specific moment in my life that I thought, like I'm doing fighting or I want to do fighting because of this. Same thing, we were talking about this with football. It's just one of those things, I just liked football. I liked fighting. Couldn't tell you why. There's probably some underlying reason, some subconscious thoughts about it, but I probably couldn't tell you. I could tell you what I was attracted to growing up. I could tell you what I gravitated towards, all these little nuances and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, people have their interests and people are attracted and gravitate towards certain things for whatever reason that they have on their own. And I think I kind of fall into that category myself, and I couldn't probably put it into words as to what they really are. And just kind of like all my life, from the time I was a kid, from my time I can remember, 5, 6 years old, I was always wanting to wrestle with my siblings. Was constantly begging my dad to get me into a wrestling program, then boxing. And I was just talking to Trey a little bit about when I started boxing at 11, 12 years old. And that's the age that I actually got into it per se, like full on, training, boxing. I want to do this competitively, but I dabbled in it a little bit whenever I first moved to Arizona. Okay. Mesa, Arizona. It was a gym on Broadway. Was the first time I ever did any boxing at all. I was like 9 years old then. So that kind of like ignited the flame a little bit for that. But I've always been involved in whether it be wrestling, boxing, football. It's always been sports related. I always wanted to play sports whenever I grew up. Always wanted to do it as a career. And I also was just telling Trey I actually wanted football to be my career. That was my first love.
Really?
If I could choose between football and fighting, I would probably choose football. I just told you that. That was my first love, and I'm just being honest.
What position did you play?
Linebacker and running back.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, life kind of chose for me, and I ended up fighting. So
to get to your point about growing up in the area, I didn't grow up, very privileged or anything. I was actually kind of grew up poor and in poverty. I was on food stamps, wearing the same 3-4 pairs of clothes over and over again, trying to mix match tops with bottoms and shit, make sure make it look like you were wearing different clothes. You had different outfits and everything like that. Did a lot of that growing up. My dad was in the military, and so I was with my mom. Like, I don't want to call her a single mom, but I was with my mom a lot of the time whenever he was in the military. And then they got divorced, moved to Arizona for 3 years, was with her, and then moved back with my dad. Whenever I moved back with my dad, whenever I was 12 years old, that's kind of where the whole wrestling and boxing and everything started once again. So
now, was your dad into fighting as well? Like, did he have a background of, any sort of MMA or boxing or,
Yeah, so my dad, he grew up boxing and doing Taekwondo. Now, those weren't his, primary sports. He played baseball. He was a good baseball player, and he played football as well. But I think baseball was his best sport. Still to this day, my dad passed away in 2016, so 7 years ago. And still to this day, when I see people are always like, oh, yeah, your dad. I remember the one time he caught a fly ball out in middle field, 365 feet, 400 feet, however long the field was. And I remember he slinged the ball all the way to home plate. Never seen anybody throw the ball like that. I get these stories all the time. Your dad could throw 95 miles per hour. Your dad had a cannon for an arm, stuff like that. So a lot of the same mechanics go for baseball kind of as they do for boxing and for fighting. So maybe I carried over a little bit of those traits that he had, inherited some of the gifts or, physical abilities that come along with baseball,
right,
with fighting. The rotation of your torso and your hips and everything for throwing punches, a lot of the same mechanics.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and then he also, like I said, he did boxing and Taekwondo, but they weren't his primary sports.
So I'm sorry, I'm real interested.
Well, I'm interested too,
because I've never made connections like that between the sports, and I'm also interested. Just you mentioned your dad passed away. We've talked about it on the show before, and my dad passed away in 2015, so very similar time there. And I wonder, as you're telling this story, like, how much were you sold that you'd be getting into professional fighting before your dad passed versus after? I guess
that's a question.
I mean, the reason I'm asking this is because when my dad passed, I knew I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be an artist. My dad kind of influenced me to do that and chase those dreams. But when he passed away, it lit a fire in me to be like, man, I just, I know he'd want me to do this, So how serious were you about fighting before he passed?
So that's actually a good question. So to start this with these questions that are a little open-ended, it's hard to kind of find your place on which direction you want to go, what you're saying. But with this, that's a good point because I was actually playing football at YSU, Youngstown State University, before he got into his motorcycle accident. He passed away due to complications from surgery from a motorcycle accident. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I was playing football up until that summer. And then injuries and everything happened and ended up going the fighting route after that. And once I got back into fighting, I was doing jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, everything again. We actually weren't talking for a month before that. We got into a pretty big argument, and we're butting heads. We were a lot alike, so we butt heads a lot. And for about a month, we weren't talking. And when he got in the accident, I was the first one to show up at the hospital. They had him down in Pittsburgh Presby, and we kind of squashed everything right then and there. And I was going to visit him every couple days, and I told him that I was going to be starting fighting, and he was a little surprised. He wanted me to go to the football route. And once I told him that, he still liked it, you know what I mean? But he wanted me to go the football route. And my first fight was scheduled for December. And at the time, it didn't seem like he was going to die. He didn't have any head injuries. Everything was in the lower extremities. Broke a bunch of bones, everything. Had twisted hip. I don't know the extent to his injuries, but he was, I think, 6 surgeries deep at the time.
Wow.
And he needed 10.
Wow.
Is what they were quoting us on. But he ended up having some health complications recovering from the surgery, which led to his death. So when we were talking about it, and I told him my first fight was supposed to be in December of that year, he was pretty excited to watch it then, but he never got to, you know. So that was going to be my first fight of my amateur career. And that fight ended up falling through anyway. Because I'm sure you know, you were just telling me about you're getting more into 247 watching. There's a lot of fights that all the time. If you're fall through, somebody pulls out, somebody gets hurt. So that happened to me quite a few times the first 3-4 fights. And I finally got my first fight in Columbus. I had to travel 3-4 hours away just to get a fight. And this is my first amateur fight. And they matched me up against a kid named Floridas Gunther, who was like 3-0, 4-0 at the time, ranked pretty high in the region. And I feel like they were probably trying to feed me to him. You know, he was John Gunther, a UFC fighter's brother.
Okay.
You know, up and comer type of deal. So I think they were trying to feed me to him. And long story short, I went in there. I ended up getting the 3rd round KO on him, but I whooped his ass all fight long. After the fight, he looked bad. You know, there was blood. I remember in between the 2nd and 3rd round, I was exhausted. I didn't know how to pace myself fighting. I just went balls to the wall from the very get-go. And in between the 2nd and 3rd round, I got a little bit of extra rest that I needed because there was blood. His blood was all over the canvas. And this was like, it isn't a cloth canvas like the UFC or Bellator or anything where it, you know, it stains into the cloth. It was like a mat. Right. They had to come in with towels, water, and spray and everything and wipe the stuff up. So I got a little bit of extra rest that I needed. And one of my boys, Steve Jones, my coach didn't even come at the time. It was my boy, Steve Jones, cornering me. So he came over. I was sitting on his knee. He propped up his knee because I was fucking exhausted. He put it down. He propped up his knee, sitting. He was talking to me. He's like, just breathe, just breathe. He's like, you need to catch your breath. This is the most important thing. He's like, I'm not even going to coach you, whatever. You're doing good. Just catch your breath. So we're focused on recovering. And these are 3-minute rounds, too, at the time.
And you're gassed at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, they're 3. Like I said, they're 3-minute rounds. That's not very long.
Right.
Professional fights now are 5, and I went 2 3-minute rounds, and I was exhausted. Probably didn't help that I was drinking caffeine like I am right now, right beforehand, and got the little extra rest. Went out in the 3rd round. First 2 punches, I think I landed a jab and a cross. You could tell it stunned right away, and I kind of just started unloading on him. He shot for a takedown. I defended it. He rolled to his back, pulled guard. I landed like 2 or 3 big shots, sounded like gunshots, and the ref finally stopped it.
That's how you said that. It sounded like what?
Sounded like gunshots. You know?
I've never hit something hard enough to describe it as a gunshot.
Listen, big shotgun.
Listen, it sounded like gunshots to me. And sometimes whenever you're in the moment and you're fighting, you don't notice stuff like that because you're focusing on your opponent, you're focusing on yourself.
That's actually...
But I heard the ricochet from it, like echoing in the ring. And this is in the Express Live Center. So it's like a decently big, you know, center. They have like a bunch of concerts and stuff there. This was during the Arnold too. And then I watched the fight back after on somebody's phone. And crappy phone quality. It's probably like an iPhone 5 at the time. Or whatever they are, iPhone 6, super crappy quality. They had it on Facebook Live too, and you could hear them on there, you know, over all the screams and people yelling and going crazy. So that kind of like, that was my first fight, and it was against a tough guy, and it kind of just solidified, you know, which route I was going to go with my life. And it was definitely going to be fighting, you know, and that kind of ignited even more of a fire. Like you were talking about with your dad, that made me want to succeed even more. And I actually finished college because of him. I wasn't going to finish college, wasn't going to get my degree because I didn't see myself using it. But I know he would have wanted me to do that. So I did. And then same thing with the fighting. Even though he wanted me to go the football route, he knew fighting was second for me. So I was like, I got to go, you know, all in, balls to the wall, because he shipped me all over the state to wrestle all the time. When I was in high school growing up, he knew I wanted to be a state champion wrestler, which I didn't achieve. So this is kind of like another way to do that, essentially, in essence. And I just figured like I couldn't let the time he put into me go to waste, because it would have been disrespectful to him. It would have been disrespectful to my coaches, not only because of the time, but the money and everything that they put into me as well. Because it takes a lot to develop a good wrestler, develop a good fighter. It takes not only their own commitment, but it takes the coach's commitment, coach's time. It takes your parents' time and commitment, driving to and from the practices. I'm putting money into wrestling camps, into paying private sessions with certain wrestling coaches. He was driving me down to Cannon Mac from Newcastle, up to Du Bois from Newcastle, Boardman, Ohio, all over the place, Reynolds, these big wrestling schools to wrestle with like some of the best wrestlers in the state and in the country whenever I was in high school. So I was kind of like paying that forward a little bit with fighting.
Yeah.
Wow, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. You put a lot out there, and not only did you put a lot out there, you put your heart out there, and that's something that's huge for me. Just because I didn't lose my father, but I lost my mom, right? And going into my 7th year of college, that was like we're gonna go get this. Like there ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. We're winning everything I got because it's everything I got at this point, right? And some people say, right, you have to have a bigger why than you in order for you to get to where you're going. But then you get to a point, right, where you come to balance with the death, you come to balance with what happened, right? And you're like, okay, what's my why now, right? And some part of it is probably still your dad, right? But what's your current why, if you don't mind me asking?
My current why is I could give you a list of things. Honestly, I'm not the type of person that thinks that one thing should be your why or one thing should motivate you to be great in whatever route you take in life and whatever profession you end up in. I think it's like kind of a sum of a bunch of different things, whether it be like your family, yourself, your own motivations, proving the haters wrong, whatever it is. But for me now, I've invested so much time into what I'm doing throughout my childhood, throughout my adulthood, my dad's time and money, my coach's time and money. Like I'm telling you that I went all in on this, there's no turning back for me. And like I said, my dad was a big why, but also my own aspirations are my own why. I can't, go back on my own word to myself.
Ooh.
And I put so much into this. I've never drank because I wanted to be a state champion. I've never drank because I wanted to be a world champion in fighting. I've never smoked. I've never done any drugs. I've never, even like in college, everybody's abusing Adderall. It's not a big deal. People use it to study, stay out and study for their finals.
Yeah.
I never even would touch that. Never tobacco, nothing. I never touched anything. The only drug I've ever touched is caffeine. That's serious. And I've invested not just time into the sport, but the omission of so many different things that could be a detriment to my sport and to my profession and to my career and so on and so forth, that if I just gave up now or tucked tail and ran, it would be all for nothing.
Yeah.
So between my dad, between the time I invested, between the time that they invested, and just my word to myself, I can't turn back on myself at this point.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah, definitely, man. I love like just anybody who can go all in on something. Like I don't care what it is. Like you can go all in on something. Like that's when, I don't know what your faith is like, but like I feel like that's when God moves like the fastest. Like you'll see stuff just happen in your life, and you're like, man, like it's almost like as soon as you make that commitment, doors open, right? Things happen, connections happen, opportunities are presented to you. So like, when you made that decision to go all in, what was like one of the first? I know you said your fight was like one of the first. Like, man, I'm here. Like I'm here. But like, what was one of the first really cool moments for you where you're like, wow, I can really make a future out of this. This is like a crazy interaction. I don't even know how this happened. You have like any stories like that? Maybe it's something about an opportunity or a connection that you made, or
even
like
how you got the Bellator in the first place. That's hard in itself.
Yeah. So as crazy as it sounds, I got the Bellator as an amateur. Before my last amateur fight with Cody Brundage, which was risky, so I was undefeated at the time in boxing and in MMA. I was 7-0 in boxing, 6-0 in MMA, all knockouts. I got offered by Bellator, and they wanted me to wait until early year or the spring to fight for them. But I already had another fight scheduled against Cody Brundage, who's now in the UFC, and he was a Division II national qualifying wrestler as well. Good fighter. Like I said, in the UFC, he's actually fighting Bo Nickel next.
That's what I heard. That's how you said
Nickel's next. Yeah, Bo Nickel's next opponent. That was my last amateur fight, and I was already in with Bellator at this point. They already called me. I could tell you exactly where I was when they called me. Dom Mazzata, who's from the Mat Factory, he was in Bellator at the time, and I think he was like 16-2 or something. He compiled like a crazy record before he got picked up by Bellator as a pro, and I'm still an amateur. He gives me a call. And I'm telling you, like, I'm in college at this time, and I'm broke. When I say broke, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm like stealing protein bars from the store just to eat. You know, I have $2 in my bank account, and I'm inserting my debit card at the gas pump and filling it up, knowing it's going to be -50 the next day. And then I'm going to have to pay late fees and overdraft fees and everything else. And I dealt with the consequences of that. But I was at that point in my career with college, with my finances, with my living situation. I was bouncing from house to house, with my aunt to my nana to my friend, and working security on the weekend, just making enough money just to get to and from school and eating what I can at the time. And I get this call that Bellator wants to sign me, you know, and it's everything I've been working towards. You know, I'm getting 3-4 hours of sleep at nighttime.
Yeah.
Going to class first thing in the morning, 7 a.m., waking up or right after class, going straight to the gym, coming back, doing some more classes in the afternoon, then leaving, going to work at nighttime. Or if Tuesdays and Thursdays, I had night classes, so I'd get another workout in between my afternoon classes and my night classes. I couldn't work on those days. So I was doing 2-3 days working, like doing electrical work and stuff like that for a company up in Newcastle. And then I was doing security work on the weekends. And this was just enough money to get me by, to pay for my gas to and from school, to pay for me to eat, to pay whatever bills I had. And I usually ran out of money every single month. And I was getting 3 hours of sleep, and I was doing just enough in school to where I could still graduate with honors and still pass and still get my degree, and working just enough to take care of my bills. But all of that was just so I could train as much as I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So I was taking a little bit away from my working, a little bit away from my school, so I could put like all my time into training and did what I needed to do to train to get better. And then circling back on the Bellator thing, I got this call from Dom, and I was at Hot Heads at the time, actually, and I was eating a cookie. It was like I was having a cheat meal. And
I got you.
I got like the little mini bowl. It was like $5 because that's like all I could afford at the time. It was like the really small one from Hot Heads, and then you got like a cookie and a drink with it for like an extra $1, and I'm eating that. And I get a call from Dom. He's like, "Where you at right now?" And I'm bullshitting. I was like, "Oh, I just got done at the gym." Yeah. And I don't usually lie about this shit, but I'm just trying to be funny. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's good. I got somebody that wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Who?" And he's like, "Do you know who Rich Chow is?" And I'm like, "That's like the matchmaker for Bellator, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I just got off the phone with him. Is it all right if I give him your number?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Why?" And he's like, "They want to sign you." And I like got super emotional right then and there, because like everything I was working for probably was like just right in that second, you know, boom, just hit me.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want to say I cried, but I was getting like super emotional. And, you know, my voice was a little shaky whenever I was talking on the phone. And then I got the call from Rich Chow. We talked a little bit. He said he was going to send over numbers, contract, etc. And he did. And I did my last amateur fight, which was risky. If I would have lost, you know, maybe they go back and they renege on their offer. But I ended up winning, get a 3rd round KO against Cody Brundage, who's in the UFC now. And yeah, that's where my professional career started. And I got signed to Bellator as an amateur with 0 pro fights. And there's a lot of guys out there with 20 pro fights, 25 pro fights now, still fight 247, looking to try and get a shot to go to the UFC or Bellator or PFL. So I don't want to say it was luck, because there was a lot of hard work put into it, and there was a lot of results that came from the hard work that I put in. But I feel like everybody needs a little bit of luck.
Right.
Maybe right place, the right time, right weight class.
Right.
They were looking for somebody my size, and you know, doing the right things, promotable, and you know, I caught a break. So all that time struggling, all that time working and going to school and getting 3 hours of sleep and everything, it, you know, eventually paid off. So
Yeah, man, I love like too hearing about the times where I can only imagine how alone you felt, like when you're pumping that gas, knowing that you're withdrawing more than what you have in it. So like when you allow yourself, maybe not even allow yourself, like when you're forced to go to that place as a human and you're like, man, nobody sees this right now. When you get on the other side of that, like that feeling of like oh my God.
You almost want to scream.
Yeah, like, so for you to say, like, oh man, I don't know, like, I'd have been blubbering like a baby, because like, when there's nothing like those moments in life, they make you feel so alive. They make you feel like, when you get that opportunity that you saw that not a lot of people saw, like, man, I'm so happy for you that you're here right now, man. But like, I'm curious now, like, now that you're stepping into your calling, truly, like, that's where you're at in life, and you're gonna get to see some amazing things. What's like the biggest, like, where do you see, like, what's the roof? Is there a roof? Like, what's the highest height that you see yourself achieving?
My first goal is to be world champion. Then after that, chasing the Hall of Fame and putting my name in the history books is one of the best to ever do it. I got a long way to go, and the position I'm in now is no different than the position I was back then, in the regard that I have a lot of work to do to get to that point, because that's my next goal. My first goal, was to make it, obviously get here, get my name thrown into the hat.
Right.
And now that I'm here, I got a lot of work to do to get to world champion, to get to the Hall of Fame, to get to be in people's top 10s and top 5s, and, possibly being the greatest to ever do it. I got a long way to go. I got a lot of mistakes that I need to clean up. I got a lot of work to do in the gym. I got a lot of work to do outside of the gym. I got a lot of opportunities that I need to take advantage of. There's still a lot to be done. So you can't say you made it yet, but in the same regard as where I was back then, there's moments of doubt that creep in. Like, for example, my last fight, I lost my fight, and then after, you're in a little bit of a dark place. You're trying to figure out, like, what the hell you did wrong, what you could have done better.
Film study.
Yeah. And the moments of doubt creep in. Like, when college, I'm like, am I doing this all for no reason? What if this doesn't pay off? And I end up in a bunch of debt, and I can't ever pay it back. And then I'm working my whole life to pay off my college debt and my all my credit card debt that I'm building up and compiling while I'm in college. And all this time I've spent fighting, I could have been working and building a life for myself. I'm at the point now where it's like, yeah, I'm making good money now. Yeah, I'm in the promotion. I'm a professional fighter. I'm in the position I wanted to be in back then, but it's not where I want to be now. And I need to do a lot of work to get to where I want to be now. So I'm in the same exact spot as I was then. And can I end up getting cut? Can I end up losing 2-3 in a row? Can I just fail? That's always thought at the back of everybody's mind whenever they're doing something that's very difficult, right, like this. And those are the thoughts of doubt and everything that creep into the back of your mind that you don't want to let in, but sometimes that they creep in. So those are things that I had to address, and I still have to address every day. I have to go train, work my butt off, and make these things happen.
How do you battle those thoughts? How do you combat them?
Man, I wish I had an answer that was just straightforward, but it really is tough. Everybody deals with them a little bit differently. For me, I kind of just need to take time to myself. I can't be around people when I'm going through stuff like that. I need to sort things out myself. I need to just sit there and think. Whereas like other people, when they're going through hard times, they like being surrounded by people. I like being surrounded by people when things are good. That's just the type of person I am. But when things are bad, I need to, go off on my own and kind of just sit with whatever happens and figure it the fuck out,
Yeah.
And if I can't be given time to do that, I won't ever figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I understand what that means, but I can't lie to you because I went through my own sense of depression, right? And when you're going through depression, I don't want to put that on you, but I also know what it feels like to lose, right? Especially at a high level. And when you go through that situation where you're like, nobody else can really genuinely understand what you're going through. And let's just be realistic here. There's probably not a single person in your friend group that's not a fighter, right? That can understand what you're going through. And there's damn sure not anybody in your family that can understand, like, yo, like, watch me on national TV. Like, this is not normal. This is not easy, right? So even the fact that I'm going through this situation is not easy, right? So at times when you're by yourself, you're sitting in silence, right? That's the hardest battle. It wasn't that loss, I believe anyway. That loss was, okay, you know what I mean? It happens. We're going to go to the film and we're going to figure it out. But that battle with self, that real battle, that difficult battle, when you're sitting there and there's nobody else around, right? And you're lonely, but it's almost where you want to be. You know what I mean? Like it's
100%.
It's where you want to be.
Because here's the thing, like I keep bringing it up, but you know, when you mentioned like when you were alone, you had like no money to your name, you're trying to make ends meet before you get that call. Guess who figured it out?
You get comfortable.
You figured it out. You didn't have people around. You figured it out. So when shit hits the fan now,
It's on me.
you're like, I got this. Like, get away from me. I figured it out before. You weren't there. I need the space to figure it out. I can relate to that, dude. Like,
100%.
go back to that alone feeling, because that's where when you're in desperation mode, like it's.
And correct me if I'm
Figuring it out.
because I feel that. Like I went through some stuff similar, very recently. This is me being vulnerable, me being real with you. Homeless, right? Making the most money that anybody in my entire family has ever made. Never. But homeless, right? Coming into a space where you still got to keep the same energy, you got to keep the same mindset, right? But now, as weird as it is, man, and believe me or not, either you understand or you won't. When I'm at my lowest, I'm at my best, and I do not know why. And the reason why I say that is because now I'm in my grind mode, and you can't take me out. You know what I'm saying? Because now I'm gonna do anything I can fucking do. Excuse my language for saying it, because I know YouTube's gonna be weird about it. But I'm sorry, bleep it out. But with that said, bro, like you get in that space where it's okay, it's me versus everybody. Then watch how it works out. And I like, bro, I'm getting mad right now.
Get back to yourself, bro. Because you have to. You have to, like, those reality checks are like, they're real. So, man, when you kind of go to that place, when you're coming off this loss, you said. So, what's the difference between a loss in a team sport versus the loss, fighting?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's more humiliating, and a lot of people are going to be like, you're fighting the best guys in the world. You're doing something that 99.9% of people won't do. There's nothing humiliating about it. It's easy for them to say that, but to me, it's humiliating, It's, for me, like, I had to sit with that loss. I still am, but I had to sit with that for a long time and just, like I said, deal with it. And there's nothing that anybody could say. There's nothing that anybody could do to make me feel better, And it's a one-on-one sport. You're locking yourself in the cage with one other man. He's trying to take everything you work for. You're trying to take everything that he's worked for. And nobody else can help either of you guys. It's one-on-one. You guys are doing the closest thing you can to like gladiator sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest thing to, death by combat. And the ref's in there to stop anything excessive from happening. But you have seen fighters, boxers, MMA fighters die after they've been taken to the hospital after a fight. Thing can happen. So this is something that's in the back of your head. And a lot of times, at least for me, luckily, I got beat by decision. But, my last fight, I'm a little humiliated by the way I gassed out. It was a domino effect. I made myself tired. Some of the things he was doing defensively and game plan wise was working well for him, and he did a good job of implementing those things, and it made me even more tired than I was making myself, and I lost because of that. But it's a 3-round fight. If that were like a fight to the death to me, you know what I mean, I probably would have lost. And there are situations where like you see somebody get knocked out and they talk about it after. Some MMA fighters, famous ones, have talked about this, to where like when they get knocked out or they get choked unconscious and they speak about it after and they're super emotional and they're crying, it's because if the ref wasn't there, they'd be dead, that the ref saved their life, and there's something about a man that always does everything for himself and is in a sport that's as gritty and as tough as this, to where like when somebody has to intervene, it just doesn't sit right with them, and like I said, my situation isn't that severe and it's not to that extent, but he essentially came in there and not only took the 0 from my record, but he took a big part of like what I was working for my whole entire life. I sacrificed so much just to go and shit the bed that fight, You know, I didn't perform my best. I could have fought better. I could have listened to my coaches. I could have, you know, maybe did more in camp. There's probably little injuries and things like this that probably, if they wouldn't have happened, would have benefited me a little bit more. But I can't sit here and analyze what could have been and what happened. You know what I mean? The result is the result, and I can't change that.
Yeah.
So it happened. It's in the past. I have to deal with that, and I can't sit there and beat myself up all the time about what happened that I can't change. The only thing I can do is look forward, and that's a very cliche saying, but it's very true, especially in this case.
So, and that's and I can see on how much it does affect you, bro. I'm a people person, bro, and he knows this about me, but I can feel your energy right now. And that energy that I'm getting is that you're not only still dealing with it, right? You're working through it as we speak, right? Because a warrior, and anybody, and we're all athletes here, so anybody who's a warrior, right? Like you said, bro, if that man's not there, then he'd have took that from you. You know what I'm saying? And I can only imagine to the degree that you actually are like, what the fuck do I have to do so this never happens again? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I have to do as a man to make sure that this doesn't happen? And I know that's not easy. And I don't know how film study works in fighting, but I also know you played football, so you understand film study, of course, right? But even watching your stuff, because now I'm a fan of yours, right? After I have met you, we have conversation and you respond back, because most people don't. And keep it real. You're a real one for that. You feel me? But, and you respond back, and you're also courteous. You notice the people who notice you. You know what I'm saying? That's respect. I got love for you for that. So I watch you, right? I watch how you've been building yourself back. You know what I mean? And I can only imagine the darkness that you had to go through, but who's in your corner right now? Like, it can't just be you. And I know it's not just you, you know what I mean? But I don't want to speak for you because I'm not you. You know what I mean? But I want to know who's in your corner, who got your back through this situation, even when you don't have your own.
Pretty much everybody that I thought had my back still has my back, you know, and I'm not surprised at that. There's a lot of my friends and family and, you know, business partners, so on and so forth, that are stuck by me through this. But there's also people, believe it or not, that I thought, you know, that are like we're having a conversation right now and we're being genuine with each other and, you know, kind of laying it all out there, where these people seem like they are being super genuine with me and they're supporting me. And then after my fight, you see or hear the things that they said or say about your performance or about you. It's like you kind of see that these people actually weren't rooting for you. They were rooting against you the entire time. And it made them excited and brought them happiness and joy to watch you fail.
Yeah.
There's people like one of my friends, and I'll never tell him this, but one of my friends, somebody who's close to one of my best friends that I know through my best friend, that every time I see them, you know, super like nice to me.
Right.
Super like kind, and you know, seems like they're being supportive and like, oh yeah, this is so cool what you do. You're so good. You work so hard, blah, blah, blah. And then after my fight, you know, I get screenshots of this person going on Facebook and Twitter and everything and making these remarks like, oh, I can't win them all. You put laughing emojis after it. Maybe your ego is a little bit better or bigger than your skill set. Stuff like this, yeah, coming from people that are supposed to be like supporters of me, and they're posting this minutes after my fight. And there's people that are sending it to me right away, and then there's people that like tell me, you know, 2 weeks later, like, I didn't want to say this to you, or you know, because I didn't know how you were handling things after your loss, but I just want to let you know that this person said this or did this. And it's like in a way, some people will be like, oh, I don't care, but it's like at least I know who to, you know, stay away from.
Right.
Who I shouldn't like confide in, you know, in certain situations.
For sure.
And I think the people that brought that information to me are more friends and supporters than anything, because it's kind of like them showing you like, hey, you know, be careful on this person, watch your back, you know. So you deal with a lot of that. And honestly, if it weren't for my friends and my family, I probably, I would have made it through it no matter what, but it probably would have taken a lot longer. And I think having that support system definitely helps out a lot. But like we touched on before, I'm one of those people that like to sit with myself.
Right.
You know, if I failed, let me sit and feel it. You know what I mean? So not only can I work through it, but I can make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. And part of my motivation go forward might be to not feel that feeling ever again. but I'm also not going to let it fuel my entire work ethic, because that would imply that I'm letting one man or one falter dictate what I'm doing with the rest of my career.
Ooh.
And like we talked about before, we already know our whys, you know, so if I go ahead and change it right now, you know, I'm not being true to myself. So that can motivate me a little bit, motivate me in the short term, but I can't use that as a long-term motivation. And I think the biggest thing that changed since that loss was my attitude towards things. I was getting a little egotistical, not just with like my skill set, but like in the fight itself. There was times where we were breaking down film. We keep talking about film study. We were breaking down film on this kid, and my coach Mike Brown was like saying stuff like, I might bet on this fight. I think this fight's like 99 to 1% you. Like, the only way he wins is if he catches you. And then I said, I think the only way he wins is if he gets me tired. You know, because the kid has a good gas tank. He like push the pace. But I thought my cardio was bulletproof at this point. You know what I mean? So I was like, there's no way this kid beats me, you know? And we're breaking down the film, and he's just trying to hold people against the cage. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, good luck holding me there. But then we watch it more, and it's like, this kid's holding everybody there. Seen him hold big, strong wrestlers, athletic football players that got in the fight, and big, strong dude just holding them there. And this guy, you know, he's built well, but he's taller, a little bit lankier. He's not like, he doesn't look like he'd be a shithouse, you know what I mean? And so I'm thinking, like, there's no way maybe this dude just farm boy strong, or maybe his technique's just really good. And then we get in the fight, and he takes me to the cage, just like we thought he would, and I just reverse him right away. You know, and I'm like thinking to myself, did I just get lucky there? I flip him, disengage, get back to strike, and he takes me there again. Flip him again. You know, and then it happens a third and a fourth time. And then I'm thinking to myself, this kid's weak, you know? Like, I don't know what we were watching on film or what those other kids felt, but I was like, I'm twice, triple, 4 times as strong as this kid.
Yeah.
And I was using like 50% of my strength because I'm trying to conserve energy and not burn my gas tank, because this kid's a cardio queen. And I think that was part of the reason why I started wrestling. After my fight, you go look at the post, I'm like, one of the biggest things I say is, I don't know why I started shooting. I don't know why I started wrestling. I was winning the striking exchanges. You go look back on the fight, I was way faster than him. I was way more explosive. I was landing the better combinations, the better shots. He wasn't really landing much. My technique was better. My skill set was better. And then I just started wrestling. And this is one of the things where I was saying, you got to just sit with it and kind of like figure out what went wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, did I start shooting because I was tired? Did I start shooting because, you know, I felt him in the clinch and I was like, I could just take him down easy? Did I start shooting because he kicked me in my calf a few times and my calf was starting to hurt? Did I start shooting because I thought I could just finish the fight easier on the ground than on the feet? Like, what was it? Did I start shooting because my cardio started going? Like, I started getting tired. And a lot of the time I do this in practice, and it's something I'm trying to break. The habit I'm trying to break. I shoot and I wrestle whenever I get tired, because I figure if I take the person down, I could rest on top of them, you know, catch my breath. And it's a bad habit. That might be another reason why I did it. So there's a plethora of reasons that I told myself like could have been the reason why I started wrestling, but it's probably the sum of everything, and it was probably a psychological thing on top of that. My coaches specifically told me, don't wrestle. The last 4 weeks of camp, I hurt my ribs going with Austin Vanderford. It was on a Friday. We were doing jiu-jitsu. I don't know how I cracked them, popped them, cracked them, whatever. I couldn't wrestle or grapple the rest of camp. I probably only got like 2 more sparring sessions in and was doing a bunch of mitt work, but my cardio still felt good. When I was doing the pads, my heart rate was still low.
Right.
Still felt like I was in great shape, you know, but I didn't get to grapple or wrestle. But I didn't think that would be a problem. You know, I was like, in 4 weeks, I wrestled my whole life. If I need to wrestle, you know, it's not going to be a big deal. Maybe it affected me, maybe it didn't. And I'm not the one to sit here and try to make excuses. So I didn't do that. You know what I mean? I didn't go after the fight and say like, I had this injury, I had that injury, and I would never do that. But that was something that happened, and maybe in the back of my head, that's why I started wrestling. So,
I mean, it sounds like you've done an extensive, like, you know, replay of this in your mind over and over. how much of it do you actually remember firsthand versus what you remember on the film? Like, what percentage of your fight do you think you actually go, oh, I forgot about this when you're watching the film? Or does it like lock ingrained into your brain?
You are on a fucking roll today. Thanks. Like, you are asking some great questions. You were on, I'm sorry, I forgot. Write it down. We have a thing here. You don't consider F word so many times.
That's not true. You can say it however many times you want. It just makes his life harder because you got to bleep it out.
If I would have known we weren't supposed to swear, I would have tried to keep it on a minimum.
Fuck.
Okay, thank you. But nah, but for sure, man, to his point, because he asked a really good question, man. It's like, because we all been through that, right? Like when you're in the game and people are like, oh, did you remember when you did this? No, because I was in the game. I was locked in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then you go back to film, you're like, why am I doing that? You know what I mean? So if you don't mind answering this question, I think that was a really good question.
Thanks.
Yeah, some of it, I would say I remember most of it. But there's a specific time during the fight where it was in the second round, and I remember telling myself in the fight, okay, I'm done wrestling. This isn't working. He defended like 2 or 3 of my shots at this point. And after the first defense, I was like, okay, it was just a bad shot. Second defense, I was like, that was a fluke. So then because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way this dude's defending my shots. And he had a good defense the first time. Second time, maybe I'm getting a little tired and I'm taking a bad shot. I don't know. But I'm thinking this in my head. And I'm like, I'm not going to take anything away from the kid. The kid performed well. I performed like shit. He was a better man that night. It is what it is. But I'm thinking to myself during the fight, shit's a fluke. There's no fucking way this dude defended my takedown, you know? I felt this dude in the clinch. There's no way. And then after the second or third one, I'm like, I'm done wrestling because I'm getting tired. I felt my gas tank start draining. And I'm like, and he's making me carry his weight. He has me in a front headlock. He's pushing my head down. That's the biggest thing. Like, if we would have stayed in the front headlock and he wouldn't have been pushing on my head and had his hips on top of my head, I probably would have been all right. But then pushing my head down and fighting my neck up and taking a lot of energy to fight my head back up. And I started getting drained, and I'm just telling myself, all right, fuck it, I'm done wrestling. So I get back up. We're against the cage. I reverse him back against the cage again. And we're moving to the left. And I'm thinking in my head, and this is probably where I fucked up, and I shouldn't have just thought about it. I should have just did. And I waited too long, and we're circling to the left. And right when I'm about to go to disengage and throw an elbow on the clinch, roll my ankle. I fall back down to my knee on my left side, and I didn't know this happened. Well, I knew it happened during the moment, but I forgot this happened. And he went to a Muay Thai clinch right away around my head. But I'm a grounded opponent, so he can't knee me yet. And I remember thinking in like real time, in a split second, if I come up, I'm going to eat a knee and get knocked out, like cold. Like, because this is a perfect position for a knee. He has his hips back against the cage. He's loaded. And I'm in a vulnerable position. I'm on both knees. If I come up, I'm coming right into that knee. And I'm like, my only other option is to shoot again. So what I just told myself I wasn't going to do, got to do because I'm in a vulnerable position.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's probably shouldn't have thought about what I was going to do. Probably should have just disengaged, but I'm circling, boom, roll my ankle, fall down. And so I shoot in. And this time I had my hands locked. And I didn't lock my hands one time this fight, except for this one very moment. And I remember thinking to myself in this moment, and this is where I knew I lost the fight after this moment. After I lost this takedown, I knew I lost the fight because I was in my own head. And at this moment, I said to myself, my hands are locked, but if I squeeze, because when you get your hands locked, you squeeze your arms down like this so it pinches their legs. And then you can either lift them or pull them off the cage to get the takedown. And I'm like, but I'm thinking to myself, it's going to take a lot of energy to squeeze his legs together. It's going to take a lot of energy to lift him. What happens if I lift him and then he gets out, or I lift him and I take him down and he gets back up? Then I expend all that energy for nothing. And I'm like thinking to myself through this while I have my hands locked. And then you could hear the announcers when you watch it back rolling through like, oh, Dalton has his hands locked. I don't know why he's not going for it here, or he needs to get his head out of the middle. I'm taking the time to like think, and this is where I'm messing up. And I started having those intrusive thoughts of doubt. And that's whenever I was like on the verge, like, should I save energy or should I just go balls to the wall and go for the takedown? And I chose to try and save energy whenever I was in a position where I probably could have finished the takedown if I would have just gave 100% of my effort. And because I didn't do that, looking back on the fight, when I watched it, I'm like, this is where I lost. This is where it turned in his favor 100%. I lost the fight at this moment. This was the exact moment that I lost the fight. And I'm kind of coming to realization with that a little bit more now that I'm like putting this into words and actually physically voicing it. But I truly think that was the moment, and that was in the second round. That was the moment I lost the fight. And there was still probably 7.5, 8 minutes of that fight left at that point. And yeah, that was the turning table.
I love hearing you say, like, as you're telling us this story, because like well, not only that, bro, but I've been in, like, we've been doing a lot of podcasting, and like I'm learning stuff about myself. Like, as I retell stories, there's something about talking and like engaging with other people, because I'm sure you've replayed that in your mind a million times, but there's something about voicing it, and like it allows you to see it from a different angle. It's weird. Like, I don't know how it is, because like I'll even be on, like, you know, Brian's show in the morning or something, and I'll say something, I'll be like, man, I've thought about this a million times, but I've never had this thought pop into my head while I'm thinking of it. So like that's interesting to hear you say, like, man, I think this is when I lost that fight, because now I know, because you spoke this, when you get into that situation in your next fight or whatever it is, you're not going to hesitate.
Yeah.
Because you're going to remember, like, I don't want that outcome again. And you're going to just, boom. That's the power of, like, talking and having people around you. Because like you said, and like when you go to that space and you self-correct and you're by yourself, like, you can get lost in that. There's a good part to that, because you get into desperation mode and you're like, man, I don't need anybody.
Facts.
But like, it's a double-sided coin where, you know, you don't need anybody to get out of it, but once you get out of it, you need people to help you clarify and, like, you know, hold you accountable and remind you. And so like, there's no doubt in my mind, like, I want to be at this next fight.
Bro,
I want to like see that moment and be like, dude, like, I want to dap you up after you come out with the win and be like, dude, you didn't hesitate. Like, you know.
But yeah, that's a good point though. Voicing it, I think, is like you're talking about. You need that point where you need to just sit with yourself and deal with it on your own. But I didn't realize the way I just worded it and the way I said it to you. I made a choice at that moment. Whenever I was watching it back, I'm like, this is when I made the choice.
Yep.
Do I go balls to the wall and last ditch effort right here and put it all on the line here? And if I get this can change the fight in my favor again, or do I save energy and play it safe? I chose to go to play it safe, and that's what the choice that caused me to lose that fight.
The title of this episode, All In, man, because like, dude, the same feeling you felt at the pump when you're like, dude, I don't got anything at the gas tank right now, but I'm gonna let it rip, baby. Like, that's where you got to be at mentally. Like, if you want to achieve something in your life, like, if you want to really be great, there's no room for like leaving anything in the tank. And now there's like I said, for you, like, I don't know shit about fighting. So like there's mental reserve, there's physical reserve. You have to keep your tank, like you said, like, you can't burn it all at once. But like, when you know you gotta go, you gotta go. And like, that goes for anything in life. Yeah. So like, if you get that, bro, like, if you understand that, like, bro, I have no doubt that you can get to whatever level you want to get to in this.
So ready to watch them fight again. I'm not even going to lie to you, bro. And I don't hype people up. I'm not that type of dude. I'm just going to keep it real. Like, I hype my boys up, you know what I'm saying? But like, I'm not somebody who's going to ride somebody just to ride somebody. But to hear your story now and seeing where you're at, right? Only one thing I'm going to suggest, I don't know if you're doing it, but if you're not, you should, in my personal opinion. Find somebody that's close to you, or go to somebody that you feel that you're most comfortable talking to on a consistent basis. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody that's going to, like he said, hold you accountable, but also somebody who you just can be like straight up honest with. I got a therapist personally just because I needed it when I was playing football. So I would overthink. Like, instead of me catching the football, I'm thinking, okay, quarterback just took 3 steps. I have this amount of time. Bro, just go
overthinker. You overanalyze everything. I do the same thing, bro.
Listen,
it is a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it helps you, and sometimes
it murders you.
Yes.
Because the overthinking, like, I actually heard someone say it recently. Like, when you're overthinking, you're not actually thinking about, how to solve the problem. You're actually thinking about what the worst outcome is in both and which one sucks less.
Yeah.
And so like you're trying to map out all these possible scenarios for what could happen instead of just going and then figuring it out as
Yeah,
you
you
go.
need to avoid hesitation.
And that right
Essentially.
there, and that's the worst part about it, is because like you said, right? Had that been life or death, right? Because you're thinking so much, you hesitated. And that might just be enough time for somebody to stab you, shoot you, kill you in every which way, right? For me, it was like genuinely, and I mean this, when I was playing ball, I was at my best when I can't tell you what actually happened. Like when I can't physically tell you like my best game because I was just such in the moment. I call it primal, right? I was so primal to the point where it was like, it doesn't matter. Was the job done? Then it's done. I'll watch it on film. You know what I'm saying? When I'm overthinking, I'm overanalyzing, now I'm hesitating. I got jammed at the line. You know what I'm saying? Now my coach is bitching at me. I got my girl texting me after the game like, what were you doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I said, you know what? Forget that, bro. At the end of the day, whatever happens, happens. I'm gonna die by the sword.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the one thing I remember back from high school, bro. Like that was our thing. Like, yo, at the end of the day, die by the sword. And if you could do that, that means that you're giving every single thing you got into your current moment. I can't think too far in the past because why, Vinny?
Man, the past is depression.
There it is. What's the future?
Future's anxiety.
There it is.
I was gonna mess that up.
You was about to so bad, but you gotta live in the moment, right? So we're gonna take it from a darker standpoint because I want to ask you a funny question. I really do because you seem like a strong person, so I gotta know.
Yeah, I've been working out.
Not you, him. I'll ask you this question: if you could say your fighting style is like any animal, what animal would it be?
Oh man, I've never thought about that. You're hitting me with the hard questions, man, that I have to sit here and think about before I answer them.
That's good.
And then I'm gonna ask you, Vinny.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could either do that or the other segment that I usually do on the show with fighters is I ask them if they think they could kick my ass in certain situations. So we could.
If you need, we could do that too. But if I had to, man, I honestly don't know, man. This is something I would have to think over for a while. We can probably revisit this before
All right.
we're done with the podcast, and we can go with some other stuff, and I'll keep this in the back of my head.
Okay.
But I don't think there's something I can answer right now. I'm trying to we're just talking about overanalyzing. I'm like overanalyzing animals right now, trying to figure out, this one, because this one does this, you know? It's like, that's what I'm doing right now. It's crazy though, because we're talking about all this stuff and we're talking about the thoughts that go through our head in these moments. And it's like, when you explain it to somebody, it's like, they're probably thinking to themselves, or you might think to yourself, when I'm explaining this, it sounds like this is taking a long time to think all this stuff. Like it's taking you minutes to explain what you're thinking, but it all happens like that. You know, it's a split second. Yeah. It all happens in a split second, but you go through all those thoughts. You know, you ever see the movies where it goes slows down and go, yeah, and it have all the thoughts going through somebody's head. Yeah. They'll have all the depictions, and the illustrations, and everything going through their head in a movie, and it's all in a split second. It'll zoom back out of their head, and boom,
Equalizer,
flipping again,
like the Equalizer.
Yeah, and it's crazy because that actually happens. I felt like that actually happens to me. Yep. That's serious, and it's crazy because you can't explain it to people. You try to explain it to people, and you end up telling this big long story. When in your head, when it happened, it was a split second. It's like, why can't I explain it like that?
That's a fact, though. You're not wrong, bro. Because I know you.
It's a different realm, bro. It's a different realm, and if people aren't in that realm or haven't been in that realm, they don't understand it.
You slow it down too. You're like, that really just okay.
I mean, I've been in it I was a football player. I played college football, but I didn't play at the level Trey did. Obviously, I haven't been in, in any ring like you've been in. But I find it in my art now. That's what we always talk about. The athlete never leaves. So when sports are over for me, I translate that now into my family, into my business, into my art. I want to put myself in those situations where I have to tap into that flow state in order to solve a problem or in order to, experience life. I think that's my new current, it's like a drug, dude. I just want to experience life in ways that I haven't yet. And not through, drugs or alcohol or it's like a high on life type of approach. And I'm addicted to that right now. And it's weird because when I try to explain that to people who are just like, it's like they're zombies. It's like they just like live this life and they just are okay with never feeling what you're describing. Because there's people that I know that are in their 50s, 60s, and they genuinely have never felt what it feels like to be in that flow state of like time slows down. Shit just doesn't like make sense. And then you try to explain it to them and they're like, bro, you're too deep. And I'm like,
Nah,
hey, you're too shallow.
That's
bro.
what
like, my God, like, come down here. This is life.
right. Nah, for real, bro. And you talk about your flow state, bro. I'm picturing, because I went and watched the fight. You know what I'm saying? We were doing research. We have to do research now you a little bit. And as I'm watching it, bro, as you're explaining this all to me, bro, that's like 5 seconds within the fight. Like, that's not like it's 20-minute scenario. Like, bro, this is in your head and it's just happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That experience, bro, I know he gets it. I know Swing gets it. That's why his name is Swing. You feel me? Like, athletes genuinely get that point. That's why I think athletes overall are always going to be successful, because there's times where, like, yo, you go into a state of mind. It happens to me with people. It happens to me when I'm actively doing things, and there's times I can't explain it. And I'm sure for you, bro, when you're throwing certain punches, your combos probably at this point are becoming innate. You know what I mean? Like, you could do them and not even think about them.
Yeah.
Flow state, bro. You're not thinking.
Do you visualize
like before my fights? 100%. I do like ice baths. I do sauna, stuff like that. And whenever I'm doing that, whenever it gets really hard, I start like visualizing stuff like that. And then before my fight, before I walk out, I'm visualizing the night before when I'm cutting weight, visualizing. I try to think about it right before I go to bed as I'm like, my eyes are shut. So I try to have a dream about it, you know? This stuff sounds corny to like the normal, not to you guys, to the normal person. You know what I mean? You tell us a normal person that never played sports, or maybe they don't care for sports. Maybe they're just not a sports fan. Maybe they don't like getting that deep into things like you were talking about. And they'll never understand it. They'll never care. But to me, I think it's essential to success. In my mind, you have to visualize. And to your point, like, yeah, you do this long enough, your reactions, like, you just react to stuff. You know what I mean? It's no longer thinking about it. So for me, when I'm fighting, you know, first round, I'm feeling somebody out, you know, I'm drawing out certain reactions. I'm like, okay, if I do this, they're going to do this. So now I'm trying to react to the second one. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I lead with a jab and they're countering me with the right hand, or they're slipping and countering with the right hand every time, what can I counter their counter to?
Yeah, it's like chess, not checkers, man. Like, visualization is just a form of chess. Like, you're figuring out, like you said, 2-3 steps ahead. If you're worried about, like, you know, I hope this punch lands, like, you're gonna lose the fight. Like, you're throwing punches. Like, I don't know anything about fighting, but if fighting is anything like every other thing in life, like, you're not, like, when you're throwing a punch, you're already thinking about what you're gonna counter to their counter. And like, if you haven't visualized that, if you haven't played that in your head a million times, you're not gonna be set up for success
ever.
Have you ever had a moment in the fight where you visualized something and then it actually happened just like that, or somewhat similar?
Yeah, it always happens similarly.
So,
you know what I mean? Because you embed that in your head, you know, it becomes like part of your like subconscious thoughts. So it's like you get those, what do they call it? Whenever you feel like you have a moment and you feel like it happened before. Deja vu. Feels like deja vu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this happened before.
Yeah.
It's because you're constantly thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
how much would you say you think about fighting? Like, can you shut it off? I feel like if I knew I was going to get in the ring with somebody in like 6 months, I feel like every waking moment of my life, I'd be thinking about that fight in 6 months.
So that's the thing. That's a big thing. Fighting, like a lot of sports, is very psychological. Like he was saying, he said he has a therapist for football. You did, right?
Still have a therapist, but yeah, I had it for football specifically. That's where it started.
I don't for fighting, but it's very psychological. A lot of it's an attitude. And, you know, I found that I perform my best in sparring fighting where I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. You know, I'm just cold. I'm not overthinking things. I'm not overanalyzing like I'm talking about like I did in my last fight. My last fight you watched beforehand, I was super excited, super hyped up, and it wasn't a front. You know what I mean? I was, but I let my emotions get the best of me, you know, and that's where the ego came into play and everything else. And I I feel like I do best whenever there's no emotion at all, you know, and I'm just super cold and I'm just, like I said, like, fuck it, you know?
Yeah. You're in your flow state. I don't even know if it's necessarily you being cold, bro. You're literally like, I'm here, but you're not there. And I'm being honest with you, bro. Like, watching your fights, bro, I feel like I studied you as if I was about to fight you. I ain't gonna cap. But, like, watching you, bro, like, you can see the difference. I wanted you to tell us, because I'm not going to speak for you, but I wanted you to see what you would say. But you can see the difference in your fights on, like, when you're you and when you're thinking. Because me personally, I tell myself all the time, there's two different people that's out there right now. There's the me that's just flowing through, and then there's the me that's like, I'm thinking about every step I'm making.
That's a good point, honestly, because as I explained to you guys what went wrong during the fight, I'm thinking, you know what I mean? And it's like everything about the fight, I was thinking in the fight, I'm thinking after. And I think there was just too much thought process in everything that I was doing. My other fights, like I said, it was kind of just like, fuck it. I went in there. It's like, if I get hit, I get hit, you know, but I'm going to sit in the pocket. I'm going to sit in the phone booth and we're going to trade. I'm going to make you back up, you know? And it wasn't, at that point, it was ingrained in my mind from boxing for so long, so much sparring. And I started getting to the game of like, you know, hit and don't be hit, you know, and overthinking. It's like, I want my defense to be really good. It's like, if he comes in and does this, I start over analyzing like we were talking about. And I don't know, the last fight, I definitely overthought everything. And I was too emotional beforehand. Like I said, too emotional at the weigh-ins, the face-offs, the fight, right before the fight, just super hyped up. And I was super excited, you know, and I was feeling great, barring everything, you know what I mean? Like I said, no excuses. I was feeling great fight night. I felt like nobody in the world could beat me. But that me that was stepping in the cage that felt like that probably could have got beat by a lot of people. If I'm being honest, you know, I could have been beat by a lot of people that night. And that's not taking anything away from Aaron Jeffrey at all. He's a good fighter. You know, I didn't give him as much credit as he deserved. But there's a lot of people on this planet that could have beat me that night. And if the Dalton Rosta that showed up the 3 fights before that shows up against him, shows up against anybody else that stepped in that cage that night, you know, regardless of weight class, I don't think there's anybody in that building, anybody in that state that would have beat me, anybody in the country, really. You know, I think outside of small tweaks I need to make in my game, things I need to work on, holes, weaknesses, whatever, cardio, everybody talks about the cardio with me. Everybody talks about like my energy expenditure. If I can fix those things, I truly believe I can beat anybody on the planet. And the reason I say that is because if fights were one, and this is where I think it comes into being psychological. If fights were one round, and I'm thinking this to myself right now, and I think this when I'm sparring too, and I usually have a really good first round if I know I'm only sparring a few. If I was to fight just one round and one round only, you told me I'm going in there for 5 minutes and that's it. You know, because of my speed, my athleticism, my size, strength, everything combined at my weight class. You know, because it's a combination of everything, just like MMA is with everything else, boxing, wrestling, whatever. I think there's not a person on the planet that can beat me in the first 5 minutes. If we're just fighting for 5 minutes, no second round, no third round, if we're fighting one round, 1 5-minute round, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that can beat me. And that's me saying I think that I have the best skill set whenever it comes to speed, strength, power, technique, everything combined. Being the best in the first round. Now you bring cardio into it, or the psychological aspect of it, me thinking about cardio, or me thinking about myself getting tired. That's when it starts playing with me. Now I go in there like, oh, this is 3 rounds. You gotta chill yourself out, Dalton. You can't go balls to the wall first round. You gotta save some energy here. You gotta save some energy there. You know, then I start having problems. You know, even in the first round where I really do well against anybody, because I'm thinking about the second and third, I start taking away from my performance in the first round. And I'm over-analyzing shit right now, but, you know, I just got back to training. We were talking about this 3 weeks ago. 2-3 weeks ago, I've been training. I just got back into sparring this week, and I'm sparring with one of the best fighters in the world, Johnny Eblin. He's actually champion my weight class. And we were having some good rounds, and I usually get very, very tired against him because I know he has a good gas tank, and we usually spar 3-4 rounds. Now, granted, we weren't going the full 3-4 rounds. He has a fight coming up. I was helping him. Then he had somebody else helping him right after me. But there's been times where I would get tired against him in the first round. I get tired against him in the second round. I went in, I'm helping him for his fight. You know, it has nothing to do for me. You know, every time I step in there, I want to get better. And that's what I'm trying to do while I'm in there, but I'm helping him. And I'm pushing myself, and I'm not thinking about getting tired, and I'm just saying, like, fuck it. It's 2 rounds. If I get tired, so the fuck what? We'll deal with it whenever we get there. And I just feel myself when I get tired, I'm able to push through it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, kind of like I said, the psychological thing, like the fucking attitude. Like I just said, fuck it. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I need to do. I think I figured it out, you know? I think there's other shit I still got to figure out. You know what I mean? Like I said, I have a lot of work to do. I'm a long way away from what I want to be, but I think I'm stepping in the right direction.
So what's next?
I couldn't tell you. I got offered a fight in March, but dealing with the injury, I wasn't able to take it at that timeline. I was hoping that it could have got pushed back to April. It would have been better for me. But I think after, so there's the PFL versus Bellator card, February 24th. That's champions versus champions. And that's where I said Johnny Eblin's fighting Impa Kasagane from Killcliff. And then after that, it's March 22nd in Belfast, Germany. Or Belfast, Ireland. I'm sorry. And then after that, they're supposed to have one in April, but there's no date or anything announced yet. So I'm not sure. So I'm kind of in the dark a little bit, just like everybody that keeps asking me about it. My hope is that it's April. Now there's no opponent, really. There's no venue, no city, anything yet. But the hope is they're going to have something in April. That's what I'm going to go do. You know what I mean? So I'll be ready to fight in April. And whatever comes up, you know, I'll be willing to take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Only a few more questions. I know we're a little bit longer than we typically on our podcast, but we're enjoying your conversation because otherwise we would have cut it and kicked rocks a couple of minutes ago. But I want to ask you, man, like, if you could do any of us a favor, bro, just for yourself, bro, whatever you need to do from now till April for Dalton, do it for Dalton. That's all I care about. I could care less about if you do it for cousin Joey or your dog. I seen that you have 2 dogs or 1 dog. I have
2 French bulldogs.
You know what I'm saying? Do it for the things that you genuinely care about, bro, but find your love for it again. Because I feel like that's from everything that you've said so far, and I think that you could agree here, man, is like when you were just doing it for the love of the things that you really care about, bro, you're a savage. And you're low-key scary, not gonna lie. So with that said,
You were the linebacker. I definitely didn't want to come across the middle. Like I'm not trying to. No.
I don't got time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bro,
So I definitely don't want to get locked in a cage with you.
So like with that, bro, like do it for the love, bro. Don't do it for the observation. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, bro, like how many people can say that they fought for Bellator? Like how many people can say that they're fighting the best in the world? And I know that's cliche, and I know that you're tired of hearing that, but like go into that shit with that type of love for it, and go in there saying, "F it." Like you're gonna stand, I'm gonna stand. And if we go to the ground, it's still gonna get ugly for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that guy, from what we're hearing right now, bro, that guy was still, don't get it twisted, bro. You still scary. You still scary, but like that guy is like vicious. Like you don't care. You don't have that care because it's like at the end of the day, it's for the love of the sport. It's for the love of your family. It's for the love of your father. It's for the love of the people that care about you, man. So like I'm excited to see on what you're about to be. They know this. I've now started somewhat like learning. You know what I mean? I go to the academy, so I be working with Kama and whatnot, just trying to get better at protecting myself, bro. Because who knows with us? We might end up in Uganda. We might end up somewhere. You know what I mean? But I want to be prepared for whatever that happens. So, like, bro, I'm excited for you, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm excited to see what you do and what ends up happening for you. And then whoever your opponent is, I wish them the best of luck and I hope that they got health insurance and everything that they need to get home safely after that.
Bellator will take care of that for them, for sure.
What before we get out of here, I always just kind of throw this out there. Like, what is something that you want people to know about you? Like, you know, it's like this life's not guaranteed, man. If it was over tomorrow, like, what do you want people to remember you for?
Man, I mean, I just lived in the moment, really. At the end of the day, everybody's worried about the future. Everybody's worried about what they did in the past. For me, I just want to live right now. And that's it, you know. If I'm enjoying myself at the moment, I don't really care what comes tomorrow.
I love that, man. Where can they find you, man? Give them a little tag, throw all that out there.
You can find me on Instagram, Dalton Rosta. Same thing on Twitter. Facebook, I believe, is the same as well. You know, and I keep I update my Instagram, Twitter, everything as I get news. So it's like people think I'm holding out on them. Sometimes I leak stuff a little earlier than I'm allowed to. So, I'm like kind of bordering the line right there, might step over
You
it.
want to come back on the pod and announce your next fight when you figure it out?
I could. Good, we could do that.
We're down, man.
It just happened to work out. Trey messaged me. He's like, "Hey, you want to get on the podcast?" I'm like, I'd love to, in person or Zoom. And he was like, "Oh, preferably in person." And I was like, "I'll actually be back this weekend." So he messaged me at the perfect time.
Cool.
So yeah, it ended up working out. But yeah, man, I'm excited for what's coming up. And if anybody wants to follow me and anybody's interested, I'll be updating it as I know. And hopefully it's not too far in the future, because like I said, I love living in the moment. I want to train right now. I want to get ready for something right now. And the sooner it happens, the better for me.
Dude, I love this, man. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, man. I know that you said you're in town, so appreciate you squeezing in some time to come by the studio. You're welcome back on the show anytime, man. Any way we can help you with your career, with whatever it may be, man, we're here. We're in your corner. And that comes from, we always say we're real good friends, not feel good friends. So we're not gonna be those people where when you're down on your luck, you can't turn to us. I could look you right in the eye and tell you that right now, man. So whatever we could do to help you, we're here. Appreciate your time, man. Thanks for stopping by, and I can't wait to share this one with the world. So if you guys enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. We want to keep having more conversations like this. We want to, share this with more people, not only just in Pittsburgh, but this is our first, couple episodes here, figuring, branching outside of football, outside of art, into a new realm. So if you're here, hope you enjoyed this conversation. Stick around. We got a lot more coming up on the channel, and this is Athletic Aesthetic,
And we love you.